it's Jess from Meyer Hatchery. I'm about to head outside and gather from my garden and some farm fresh eggs. This reminded me of a project that I made recently that I want to share with all of you. It has a lot of different names and there's a lot of different patterns, but we're going to call ours the garden egg basket. Let's get started. It's August and we're celebrating everything sustainability. So I built this project based on things I could find around the farm, in the garage, all those good places. You can use whatever supplies you'd like, and the cool thing about this project is you can make it as simple or as super fancy as you'd like too. To build our garden egg basket, you're going to need some wood for the sides. So I'm using some 1/2-inch wood that I already had in the garage, and it was actually painted, so it worked out great. You can choose your wood based on how you're going to use your basket. Some people like to put their produce or whatever in the basket and actually hose off the produce in the basket. For mine, I'm actually not going to be doing that. I'm just using it for gathering. So I'm just using some old plywood pieces that I had. If you're going to be doing a lot of rinsing on things like that, you want to use a better quality wood and you want to make sure it's super sealed and it can handle getting wet on a regular basis. You're also going to need some furring strips. So I've got some little strips of wood here and here, and it helps to kind of stabilize everything. You're going to need a handle. So I used a 1-inch dowel rod that I had around. And lastly, you're going to need some wire. So I'm using some leftover hard wire cloth from a coop build and some staples to staple it on. You want to start by cutting out all of your pieces, and we've made a template and left it in the description below to kind of give you a good start. That is for both sides, and again, you can adjust it depending on your needs. You want to go ahead and trace your template onto your wood, and then you're going to cut it out. Now, you can use a bandsaw to cut it out. You can use a jigsaw. You could probably even use a handsaw. Use whatever you have around. Just make sure you go slow and you're careful, especially around those corners. I just ended up using my jigsaw because it was easy for me to grab. And I had a couple rough edges, but I didn't mind. It gives it a rustic look. After I had that all cut out, I went ahead and I just sanded the edges, and I think it came out just perfect. One thing you want to remember, when you're tracing your template, you want to mark your side pieces here. Do you see how I did here on my piece of wood? I kind of just lined it up and cut those little rectangles out of each side. You can use a furring strip like I used here, or if you have something very similar, you can do that too. You just want to adjust your template for that. Basically, we want these supports to kind of rest on our side pieces of wood. I ended up making mine about 14 inches long. Again, the cool thing about this project is you can adjust it to whatever size that you'd like. But I felt like that size was good. It was easy for me to hold. For the handle, what I ended up doing was actually screwing the handle in. So you can see where my screw is here. And I just use a really long, sturdy deck screw. I know what's going to go in here is not going to be super heavy, so it's not going to bend anything. If you would like to add a little bit more stability to your handle, you can actually go ahead and use like a hole saw and cut out a hole here. Push your dowel rod in. You want it to be just kind of slightly smaller than your dowel rod. Gently hammer it in and then make sure it's cut flush, and you can go that route with securing your handle as well. After you have everything all together, you want to go ahead and paint it before you put the wire on. Now, for me, I just ended up using the painted sides that were already painted, and then I sealed it with mineral oil. Again, I'm just using this for harvesting. I'm not putting any water or anything like that in here. If you are going to be using the water, make sure you fully seal all your wood parts before you go ahead and put the wire on, and then same with painting. So much easier to paint before you put that wire on. After you have everything the way you'd like, it's time to add the wire. And adding the wire is super easy. You're just going to start at one end, start stapling, and then kind of work your way all the way around, making it nice and super tight. You want everything to be really, really tight. I used a lot of staples, so I had to go back in and kind of really make sure those were hammered in, but I think it looks great. I had a few rough edges for my wire where I cut it, so all I did was use a file and kind of file those nice and smooth, and that's it. This probably took me less than an hour to make. It would take a little bit more time if you're going to be painting it, but it's such a fun project and it looks so cool when you're done. You're so proud of your collection basket and putting the things that you've grown and the eggs that your chickens have laid into your basket. If you have any questions about building your own garden egg basket, be sure to let us know in the comments below. I better go outside and get to harvesting. Thank you so much for watching.